So we don't have a quorum, but I would like to entertain. No, I can't entertain a motion. I would like to make this a committee of the whole so that we can talk about what's on the agenda. But unfortunately, because we don't have a quorum, we won't be able to take any action today. So do we need everybody to agree on that? Or do I just
I think
make it so?
Affirmation.
Through acclamation, that it doesn't need to be formalized motion second.
Okay.
Committee consensus
Okay.
is sufficient on this to move forward.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Agree. Aye.
No eyes. Still okay. All right. So I guess we can do introductions. Start with you, Chris.
Chris Barney with Sonoma County Transportation Authority and Regional Climate Protection Authority.
Dana Trey, SCTA, RCPA.
Charles Smith, Sonoma County Transit.
Stephen Schmitz, Sonoma County Transit.
Kathleen Cortez, Area Agency on Aging.
Maria Arce, Petaluma Transit.
And online. How do we do this thing?
Ross Bondetten, SCTA, RCPA.
Thank you.
Steve Bernabel, Transportation and Land Use Coalition.
Hi, Steve.
Colin Toma, System Change Advocate with Disability Services and Incentive.
Thanks, Colin.
Gaffney, the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
Hey, John. And we've got one more up to.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry. I was so happy to hear all of you. I'm Lee Spitzer, and I'm a user of many of these services, mostly Santa Rosa Paratransit and the Sonoma County Paratransit.
Okay, welcome, Lee. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda are public comments. And for any items that are not on the agenda, if you'd like to make a comment, now's your time to do so. Okay, no comments. I don't hear any comments from anyone, so I think we'll just move along to item number 3 on the agenda. And actually, we cannot make any action on item 3. So let's move on to item 4. We can't make action on item 4 either.
So items, those notes were actually from a committee of the whole, and so we actually don't take action on.
You don't, so that's just FYI.
That's just
Okay. Okay, then the next item is item number 5, notice of election of officers. Yeah, something for that
so
thing?
I just wanted to make everyone aware that at our next meeting on in January, which is scheduled for January 16th, we will be doing election of the chair and vice chair for this committee, as we do each year. We would very much appreciate it if folks could show up in person for that meeting so we could have a quorum and get a chair and vice chair elected. And just a little background on that as well.
Oh, there we go.
Stephen Schmitz has been the chair this year and Mohammed Ali's been the vice chair. I think that sharing that responsibility is a great way to keep this committee going and kind of share the effort. We have 6 meetings a year typically, and staff puts together the agendas and runs them by the chair. And the chair is responsible for facilitating the meetings. So yeah, just between now and then, think about it. You would like to step up into that role.
Do what?
Oh, yeah, he said yes.
Do what?
Do what? Me too.
I just say we still, it's, this year, last year's been working really well. I think we just stick with it, yeah. Why rock the boat, right?
I'll rock the boat right now.
Captain can't rock the boat, he's supposed to steer.
It's rocking the bus. Okay,
Yeah, so we can take nominations at that time. To get everyone thinking about it and encouraging you to be here.
Right,
Maybe whoever's
vote for
not here.
Steven.
okay, sounds good. Thanks for that report. And hopefully we'll have a lot more people here at the January meeting. Item number 6 is the Sonoma County Active Transportation Plan update. Presentation from you, David? Yep.
Yes, I will be doing this presentation. Are you able to share it or should I log into the Zoom? Yes, or I could log in real quick. Thank you. All right, great, thank you. So yeah, today I wanted to share some information about our countywide active transportation plan. I'm going to go over kind of why we have an active transportation plan, why it's important, and our countywide approach to this. Talk a bit about our vision and goals, and a role for this committee, and where we are in the schedule. Some discussions we've been having locally, and go from there. So next slide. An active transportation plan. This is an update to our 2014 countywide plan. We are just our bicycle and pedestrian master plan, kind of going along with industry best practices in terms we're changing the name to an active transportation plan, as it refers to human-powered modes of travel like walking, biking, and using mobility devices. This can also include electric-powered mobility devices, as well as wheelchairs, scooters, and various different devices that might use the sidewalks and bike lanes and paths. So active transportation plan really focuses on increasing access to active transportation by planning for infrastructure projects as well as supportive programs. And the importance of having this plan is to really coordinate on improvements and prioritize them. Having projects in a plan is required for eligibility for several grant funding sources and helps to guide public and private investment. Next slide. So we are using an all ages and abilities approach to really both the bicycle network as well as pedestrian network. And this is really kind of determined by the concept where the majority of people are interested in using the system, but concerned, usually because of safety from traffic, right? There's kind of a very small percentage that will bike or walk anywhere, regardless of the infrastructure that's built there. But the majority of people really would use the system more if the facilities are protected from traffic and safe. Next slide. We'll be updating the industry best practices. A lot has changed since the 2014 plan. And looking at both on-street bikeways as well as off-street multi-use paths. We'll be looking at street crossings and intersections. We'll be looking at how these facilities accommodate kind of the more emerging technologies and micromobility. We will be identifying where there's opportunities for quick build projects to get things implemented more quickly and cost effectively before kind of more permanent installations go in. And we will also be looking at amenities to improve the user experience, including transit stops, shelters, lighting, signage, that type of thing. Next slide. So kind of these are some of our bicycle facility tools. I'll go through this quickly, but the dashed lines show the lower stress facilities, and that's really where we want to be focusing. The more protected bikeways and but also including shared bikeways where there's lower volumes and speeds. Next slide. And similarly, we have a number of things in the pedestrian facilities toolbox, looking at crosswalks, sidewalks, more visible crossings, curb extensions, and then some other things like leaving pedestrian intervals to provide that buffer and safety for pedestrians crossing. And we can go on to the next slide. So community engagement is a huge piece of this. We are in our first phase of community engagement, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. I guess I should mention now also that we are updating not only the countywide plan, which is an umbrella under which all of the local jurisdiction plans sit, but we are updating the local jurisdiction plans for 7 out of our 10 jurisdictions in Sonoma County. So Petaluma is doing their own process and well into developing the process for their plan update. City of Santa Rosa is just getting started on their plan update, and Windsor has recently done an update to their plan. So we are working with all the other jurisdictions on their processes and doing engagement in their jurisdictions. So we move on to the next slide. Funding and implementation will be a piece of this, and a chapter in the plan. We'll be looking somewhat to document various funding sources and for some of the higher priority projects, suggest where what funding might fit with those projects. Next slide. So this is our scope of work for the project. We've kind of done the data gathering to establish the foundation and identify existing conditions, and are pretty well into the technical analysis. As I mentioned earlier, we have started a community engagement. We put up a project website in October, and which has all of the public meetings as well as pop-up events where we're discussing the plan, as well as a public survey. The public survey has a map where you can put dots and identify issues or suggestions for improvements. And last I checked, we had over 1,000 comments in there. So it's been filling up nicely. That map survey will be out through the end of this month. and will help inform the projects and programs that are developed. In the spring, we'll have another round of community engagement with those draft projects and get some feedback on those projects and programs. And then once we have a draft plan next fall, we'll do another round of community engagement and get put on the draft plan before finalizing it. So next slide. This is how we are anticipating the structure of the countywide plan on the right and the local plans on the left. Good. So with the local plans being kind of a volume in like the countywide plan, but they will also stand alone, be able to stand alone as their own plans. Next slide. And then we'll talk about a little bit of the vision and goals on the next slide. So this is our draft vision statement. It is not finalized yet, and we've been getting feedback from the various jurisdictions we've been taking this presentation to. I'll just let you all, I'll read it for a minute, and then if anybody has any thoughts or feedback on it, we'd be interested in hearing it. All right. So I'll just stop here. Does anybody have any like initial thoughts that they would like to share on the vision statement?
My critique of some of these active transportation plans from a transit perspective, but also just from a and like an integrated perspective is that and you guys did it, which like naming transit amenities as part of the project, but just trying to kind of blur that line even more, because there's certain individuals that, you know, they're walking, and I mean the rolling includes that, but it's trying to you know, like there's certain active transportation plans that include transit in them, and kind of it doesn't necessarily need to wholly include it, but just finding where you can blur those lines. I think partly because I think that, you know, I think the strong argument is any transit trip requires, it's like a 4-legged trip, right? Like 3 of those legs require the pedestrian network, right, the bicycle network, or you know. So I don't know that doesn't, I don't know how to get into that statement, but that one slide that didn't come out for me was the pedestrian. You had a pedestrian network slide, and just, you know, maybe the actual document will, you know, talk about transit amenities more, but just, yeah, just kind of integrating that more into it, I think will, or you know, just like defining where this lays off and the transit plans pick up, or something that just kind of you know, because the walking and biking rely a lot on transit. Kind of, you know, not trying to separate them, but
yeah,
make it more integrated.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, one thing we've been doing is looking at, you know, we have in our existing conditions map, we have the transit stops. So when looking at the pedestrian network more specifically, we're looking at transit stops. You know, we haven't gotten too detailed into the pedestrian side of it yet, other than kind of doing some initial analysis on identifying pedestrian zones or pedestrian priority zones. But I think that, you know, we could kind of, as we move forward, look for opportunities to maybe in the policy section, bring more of the connection between. Okay.
I like that the vision statement says that the transportation system shall be safe and inviting for people of all ages and abilities. I think that's something that I don't think that we've necessarily pointed out so bluntly in previous
Mhm.
plans and vision statements, so it's nice to see that. And on the pedestrian side, yeah, I can't think of policy statements that necessarily talk about how certain facilities would impact people with disabilities.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering if they're gonna dive into that and look at where policies such as that might fit into a plan like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
And I
Yeah,
don't wanna,
everything
I don't wanna
we,
go too far out of our scope, right?
Yeah.
Easy to creep. Too
I mean,
far, but
I'm just wondering like
be inclusionary too, right?
what, you know. If there's anything beyond the ADA.
Yeah.
Requirements that would be beneficial or helpful, I mean, maybe.
But one
Some things
thing
are
that
on
comes to
pocket.
mind, are like the type of gates that are at class one
Uh-huh,
trails, like I've heard that's in the past, so that would be like maybe an appropriate thing,
yeah,
how that impacts person in a wheelchair.
right, like the closed gates
Yeah.
that you actually have to go
Yeah,
around to get
yeah.
in,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good point,
or you have to maneuver
yeah.
tight spaces. So,
Yeah, that is one thing that we've been starting to discuss is statements of the entrances of class one facilities, so.
I think regional parks is having somebody do a study on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't know whatever happened to the bike share or scooter share. I think there was a RFP.
Yeah, yeah,
But I would say with that, like require accessible vehicles, like, accessible bikes, accessible scooters. I see other cities and municipalities do that. Require, so if you're doing an active transportation plan, that you make it equal and accessible to everyone. Don't just have bikes for able-bodied people, but have accessible as well.
Like a free wheel.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have scooters and bicycles for people with disabilities.
yeah, so one thing, I mean, we talked with a number of different operators, as well as other cities that have included that in their programs. It's typically happened like under the scope of the same program, but like kind of a little bit differently because the vehicle, like the scooters or bikes are made, it's hard to get like an accessible scooter bike that is made to the same like degree to withstand multiple uses and the weather. So often it's sort of like a program where by request, maybe there's a bike shop that has those types of vehicles that could be rented and kind of administering it through the same program, but not quite in the same way. Yeah, and another thing I've heard is that different people with different abilities require different types of different types of bicycles, maybe a trike or maybe a reclined recumbent, thank you. Yeah. But yeah, there's kind of like different requirements, so sometimes like having that a bike shop maybe that has those types of vehicles to partner and then yeah, there's been some interesting pilots around.
Steve Burwell had his hand up.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if he's heard me.
Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah.
I do have a comment, and
Great.
that is that I would expect that over the next several years, we're going to see a good deal more money available for active transportation projects. And so I would hope that we have a pretty aggressive plan that comes out of all of this. Because the Air Resources Board is asking us to cut vehicle miles traveled by about 25% between now and 2030. So I think there's going to be quite a bit of interest in other ways of getting around. And so I just think we should have several levels of activity planned for here, so that we don't miss the ability to get stuff done.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So these are our draft goals, that really come from a subset of goals from our countywide after our comprehensive transportation plan. But we've made definitions that are more relevant to the active transportation plan. So our goals are connected and reliable, which we've defined as deliver a continuous network that allows people of all ages and abilities to use a variety of transportation types easily, affordably, and dependably. Safe and well maintained, defined as create and sustain a high quality and low stress active transportation network. Employ Vision Zero and safety plan policies and strategies to advance this goal. And community oriented and place based, defined as tailor projects to urban, suburban, and rural communities that support a diversity of uses and users and create community through active transportation. All right, so we are doing regular coordination of this plan through our countywide bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee and bringing milestone updates to various other SCTA and RCPA committees, as well as the local advisory bodies for active transportation for at the jurisdictions where we're updating plans. And then we'll be bringing them to our the various boards and councils once we have a draft plan. Next slide.
Looks like Steve Bertelbaugh had raised his hand again.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a comment about the previous slide. I think we should be looking for ways to cross Highway 101 with a bicycle or on foot every quarter mile or so. There are just lots of places where you can't get across for maybe a mile. And that makes 101 divide the community. So I know we're having a hard time getting the first bridge over the built at the college, but I think we should get in line for many, many more crossings.
Thanks, Steve. I'll just also mention, since you brought it up, that Caltrans is actually updating their bicycle plan right now for District 4. Their last plan, they had some metric for the distance between crossings, and I can't recall right now what distance between crossings they were really looking for, but that's something that I will pay attention to at the meeting that's coming up and see if they've made any updates to that and confirm what that distance is.
My impression is that their auto orientation tends to say you know, if you have a crossing every half mile or every mile, that's fine. But for people to walk a mile is kind of tough sometimes. And if you're trying to get someplace that's right across the freeway from where you are, and you have to walk half a mile to get across the freeway, that means you got to walk a whole mile to get where you want to go. So I hope they change their approach.
Good point to bring up. All right, so this is kind of our various updates that we're planning. So yeah, today just really touching on the overall project scope, some discussion about existing conditions, needs and opportunities. When we, in the spring, we'll have our draft projects, policies and programs. So we'll bring an update to this committee in March. And then next fall, we'll have a draft plan for review. And I'll bring an update to this committee at that time as well. And as I mentioned, there'll be community engagement activities around those 3 phases. Next slide. This is just kind of a different view of our schedule. We're kind of nearing the finish line with our technical analysis, and then really dive deeper into the proposed projects and programs. And the community engagement really, although we do have these 3 different phases, we can receive input and jump on opportunities for engagement throughout the process. Next slide. So this is just an example map in Sebastopol, but we have maps like this throughout the county, looking at the existing conditions. There's also a link in here to a web explorer map where you can zoom in on any area of the county and look at those existing conditions. Next slide. So our technical analysis on the bicycle side is using a level of traffic stress approach. So using the conditions of what's out there, as well as, or what facilities are out there, as well as road width and speed, number of lanes. We can identify facilities that are lower stress and higher stress, and then help us really prioritize areas that we need to bring down to lower stress facilities through infrastructure improvements. Then we're overlaying the high injury network that was developed through the Vision Zero action plan to really identify those areas in need of improvement and gaps in the low stress network. Next slide. This is another example of mapping that our consultants are doing, where we're looking at low stress network and kind of how far you can get, called a travel shed. And so this is an example in Katati, looking at from a smart station how far you can, or where you can bike in 3 miles on a low stress facility. And then the yellow shows where you can bike in 3 miles on any facility. Next slide. And so this is an example map of the pedestrian priority zones that are being developed, and these are still fairly preliminary, but you know, looking at the higher density residential and employment areas, as well as activity centers, schools, libraries, commercial centers. Where pedestrian facility improvements should really be focused and prioritized.
Is that the yellow areas of pedestrian priorities?
Yeah, so and it's a draft, so this is, these are all draft kind of based on the technical analysis, but we are, we're getting input from the jurisdictions on other areas that should be included, and I mean, I think that our public input will help inform this as well. All right, next slide. And so this is just a link to our survey. As I mentioned, this survey will be out through the end of this month. And yeah, if you haven't taken it and would like to, we encourage you to, or if you are interested in sending it out to folks, we do have some materials that would make that easy to send it out if you'd like to do that. So that's it. Any questions or comments?
A collaborative moment, because I know Windsor and Pilgrim and Santa Rosa are doing their own.
Yeah.
At some point to get together with them to kind of collaborate on these plans to a degree.
Yeah, so I mean, we've started, I think that kind of more, in the unincorporated county process where looking at areas where those jurisdictions border.
Connectivity.
Right.
Yeah, and the interconnectivity and looking at the regional routes as well. So we've started some of those conversations in certain areas. But we'll definitely continue to and mostly facilitate that through our bicycle pedestrian advisory committee. And I think, I think that all three of those cities are at different phases, different stages in their process, but ultimately those plans, once adopted, the projects from those plans will be added to the countywide project list, and that's what we've done in the past as well. And then we've made our project list so that we can update it independently of doing an entire plan update, so that we can ultimately filter that into the regional transportation plan, and that's a programmatic category for that. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks for that presentation, Dana. And thanks everybody for all the good input. I think we're gonna move on to roundtable updates then, and you start with you, Yuri.
Let's see, we got some new paratransit buses supposed to arrive in June, July of next year. Still working on getting everything lined up for those, and so we're getting 3 paratransit vehicles and 1 replacement for the Oakmont vehicle. We're working on some camera updates for our fixed route and paratransit vehicles as well. That'll give us the ability to tell whether the cameras are working on all the vehicles remotely. So that's a nice upgrade. We're still working through the difficulties with the new AVL provider. Just trying to make sure we're dealing with difficulties with providing real-time information because of the way that because the way of our vehicles are interlined and they go in and out of the bus transit mall. So it's a lot of the trips go offline and the drivers have to log back in and to the correct route. So we're dealing with some headaches there. What else? Yeah, ridership's decent. We're we still on fixed route, we're still recovering from the pandemic, so we don't necessarily have all of our service out there. Paratransit's still a little down from pandemic, but it's 80-90% returned. I'm gonna wait and see what you guys give updates on and see if I missed anything. So can't think of anything else.
Well, I'm gonna come up with some fancy stuff. Let's see, for Petaluma Transit, just a few updates, ridership from October last year is up 13%. So we're seeing a real consistent increase. There's still 55% only from pre-COVID. Our applications seem to be increasing though, but that may be in turn because we're doing more outreach to senior centers and different organizations about paratransit service. Let's see what else. We've been doing some fun things, which, you know, I always like to talk about the fun stuff. We were recently at California Transportation Association conference in Pasadena. Talked a lot about microtransit there, as well as the potential commingling and microtransit with paratransit service. So it was really interesting to hear Get in Bakersfield is doing that and having really great success. So something we might be looking at once we launch microtransit in like a future phase of microtransit, because we've seen a lot of need, especially with our recent outreach for microtransit comments. Folks who are senior using paratransit service, especially in our mobile homes, needing more accessibility. So that'll be exciting. In terms of microtransit, our next ad hoc meeting will be December 4th. We're actually going to talk about zones and get that ball rolling. Let's see what else. We are doing a toy and food drive all the month of December for Toys for Tots in conjunction with SMART and a few of our other transit agencies. We're also going to be accepting information or food and gift cards for COTS who help the unhoused. In addition, we're doing a partnership with the Downtown Association to offer free fares on our fixed route service Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve to encourage transit ridership for your shopping downtown. Let's see what else. We had a field trip with a bunch of kindergartners and that was so much fun. They came to our transit facilities. It was so cute. So many future bus drivers in there. They were
Future bus drivers.
Yeah, they were so excited to go through the bus wash. I was excited. And we sang
My kid was excited about.
oh, it's so much
Those are
fun.
long gone.
Although I will say the 27th rendition of The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round definitely got old, but it was a really fun time. So yeah, I think that's all we have right now.
Something you said reminded me of a comment. I did a focus group with people with disabilities and providers, and one of the things that came up from our JC students is that they would like paratransit on New Year's Eve to go late into the hours so that they can enjoy going out downtown and things like that. So that's something to consider.
Yes. Yeah,
Can
for
do
sure.
that. As far as Area Agency on Aging, Human Services, we are doing drafting a local master plan for aging. If you guys aren't familiar, the governor signed an executive order declaring a master plan of aging for the state of California to look at the future of aging in California. And so a lot of the local counties and municipalities are doing a local plan to look at what we can do as a county to be better prepared for aging. Sonoma County has the second oldest population in the Bay Area. So we have a lot of people age 60 and over. So our local master plan is going to look at different areas. One of them is transportation, of course. Older adults struggle continually with transportation. It's always a top 5 concern that comes out in our focus groups and surveys. So just to let you know that we have a consultant that's working on drafting a plan, and they're going to be interviewing some stakeholders, and I know that they've selected Sonoma County Paratransit to inquire about rural unincorporated areas, transportation plans and access and things like that. So just to prepare for that. And that's all for us.
What was the statistic you said that Sonoma County has the,
We are the second, among the 9 Bay Area counties,
as far as,
older adults age 16 over. Yeah.
who's the, is Green
Napa.
County the, oh, Napa is?
I think it's Napa and then Sonoma.
I would think we would be more,
That's what I was guessing.
Yeah.
But I know that, yeah, we're the second.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, our
That's kind of
statistics.
And that's in the Bay Area, not in California.
In the Bay Area,
Yeah.
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 Quite a few.
Okay, thank you. Stephen Schmitz from Sonoma County Transit, and first I'd like to introduce Charles Smith. He's our new transit specialist with Sonoma County Transit. We're super happy to have him on board. He's been on board with us for 2 weeks, so he's pretty new, but getting his bearings. He's coming all the way from New York, so trying to get his bearings out here on the West Coast. So, glad to have him. Let's see. Right now, as I know that City Bus is probably grappling with, is the impending sale of Proterra, and the apparent winner, if you want to call it that, or a loser, is Phoenix Motors, which we had never really heard of before. They mostly deal with light duty, kind of medium duty, cutaway type stuff for EVs, electric vehicles. So, but they're the ones that that are buying Proterra. It's not going to finalize until I think after November 28th. So we're trying to find out as much information as we can about Phoenix Motors to see how it might play out with them. So that's a lot of our focus right now. On the paratransit side, I don't know if it's gone live. I should know this, but it's imminent. They're gonna offer a passenger portal for paratransit riders, and so essentially you can schedule your trip, you can get a notification, you can see where the bus is when it's arriving. So some pretty neat stuff. You can pay through this portal, and it hasn't been launched already. It's going to be any day now. So we're excited about that. We're excited to see how it will work, and I understand that we're one of the few that use Nova's Trips Park that have set this up. So it's gonna be neat to see how that plays out.
Steve, is that
yeah.
web-based or mobile? Do they have a mobile app too? Or is it?
I don't know.
I think it's web-based, but it can be accessed from the mobile from what I recall.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's a good question.
We've been through, not to put work on you, but I'm curious, like, what the adoption rate is, because we're considering also having a portal. Too.
Right. We're really happy to share that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Great.
We're due to the demographic of our clientele, we're curious to know ourselves. I'll put it that way. So that's it in a nutshell. Charles, do you have anything to add?
For the paratransit side?
For transit or paratransit?
Transit, we're doing a lot of work with the cubic tablets, trying to get the cubic tablets to work so that we can track the vehicles in real time. Approximately we had half of them working, and we just had cubic come out yesterday.
Yeah, last week, yeah. We're talking about our next bus, UMO. So we've been having issues with that.
Yeah.
He's been taking the lead on trying to figure that out.
Yeah, but the technician came out, he did a great job, so I think we have a lot more online than we did previous, so we're making progress with that. Also making progress, well, starting to dig into the APCs, automatic passenger counters. Try to get the real-time stats on ridership, so some discrepancies between onboarding and passengers like disembarking off the vehicles, and how it's counting people, but we're just gathering the data and we're gonna send it over to them and try to narrow down the issue, iron it out.
again, I'm excited to have him on board because a lot of this stuff that he's tackling is just so time consuming that.
Yeah, a lot of data, a lot of crunching, a lot of monitoring, yeah.
Yeah.
We, our staff appreciate, knowing about the next bus, because they have that screen updated, so when people are calling our dispatch or our customer service to find out what information is, a lot of times they're asking about Sonoma County, so they have that screen up, so that's good to know that they can rely more on that than before. Great. Stephen, I have a few things that you guys made me think of, starting on January 1st for Sonoma County employees and city employees. We have agreements in place that with their IDs, they'll be able to ride either system without paying. And then the other one was for Clipper Start. I know for city bus starting on January 1st. I'm not sure about for Petaluma and for you guys too, 50 from 20 to 50%.
It's January 1st.
January 1st, sorry.
For Clipper Start.
Yeah,
we're on board.
Yep. So those two things that we can think of.
And I forgot to mention, because you're talking about real times, we are switching over our CAT AVL to GMB, so we'll have some real-time issues as well on our fixed route buses as we switch over our system, but so far it's been
What's the
going well.
name of the vendor?
We're using the same one, they are GMB Synchromatics.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been really helpful because Santa Rosa is giving us all the pointers, but we're looking forward to
You
it.
guys can have a GMB subcommittee, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can be the chair of it too.
I'm not gonna tell you that. I'll be my own next bus committee. Charles here, he'll be the chair. So you're pointing him. All right, so I think that's it for operator. Oh, I'm sorry, the folks online, my bad. Should we start with Colin? Do you have any updates?
Yeah, not much going on in the transit side of things. I've had to help a few consumers figure out how to get down to the Bay Area for medical appointments, down to East Bay and whatnot. And that has continued to be a significant issue. Just a lack of resources for them. That's probably the update right now. Thank you.
But the comment was that he's having trouble getting people from East Bay?
To the East Bay for medical appointments.
From Sonoma County.
Sonoma County or are they city bus?
From Sonoma County down to East Bay, South Bay area.
Okay.
Yeah, so resources, financially and physically.
So they are not paratransit, are they
Yeah,
registered?
paratransit. I don't know if they're paratransit, but I know financially it's a burden. And, if you're disabled, just navigating the system is complex.
Okay, thanks, Colin.
Thank you. You're welcome.
John? What do you go next?
Not a ton to report from the Bridge District. We're still at about 40% of our ridership pre-COVID on bus and ferry. Bridge traffic's up to about 85%, and our paratransit's about 50% of what it was prior to the pandemic. I think that's probably all I have right now.
Okay, thank you.
Question that kind of triggered Colin's question. If somebody applies for paratransit, let's say city bus, right? Does that make them automatically eligible for the other?
It makes them eligible for paratransit throughout the country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good to
true.
know.
Yeah, so you can take your eligibility from one and you just basically send paperwork to the next agent, to the wherever you're visiting, and you automatically have access to their paratransit with it for 21 days. And then you have to go through an eligibility, after 21 days, you have to go through an eligibility process, but basically for 21 days, anywhere, you can be eligible. But in the Bay Area, it's unique in that because of the red system, and anywhere in the Bay Area, you don't have to send the eligibility. It's basically everybody can see into red that you're eligible. So
In the 9-county.
in the, yeah.
Bay Area. Do we have anyone else online that is an operator or? No? Okay, thank you. Where are we? It's such a long agenda. Mobility partner reports. Well, we just did that. Yeah, okay. Other business comments or announcements? What about
We're not going to
Yes.
I have a quick announcement that may be of interest. So MTC has a grant program. It's the Community Action Resource and Empowerment Program. That's really focused on, if you remember the community-based transportation plans, it's focused on projects for disadvantaged communities. And so as part of the CBTPs, they included a long list of different types of projects, which included stuff like stop improvements, right? Shelters, things like that. So the call for projects is supposed to come out on November 27th. So, and it's just over $21 million, and they're targeting at least $1 million in Sonoma County. So there may be some opportunities for some, potential improvements in your systems that could be accessed as part of that program. So, we have a TPCC in December, right? Or is it
No.
January. Okay, so I can, between Dan and I, we can make sure and send out a link for that.
What's the name of the program?
It's the CARE program, the Community Action Resource and Empowerment program. And applications will be due in February, so there's a little bit of time.
And that's through MTC.
Yeah.
It's sort of an evolution of the Lifeline program, but with a little more wide scope and for funding sources.
Yeah, there's OBAC funds, so typical transportation funds, but there's some housing funding coming into through the REAP program, so it's slightly different, and there are opportunities for supporting CBOs and helping organizations get training on interacting with the community. So yeah, so there's also, if you have ideas along those lines, they may be eligible projects as well. So yeah, more to come. So hopefully it'll be out. It's been, the call for projects date's been like moving. So, but once it's out,
And so it'll open on the 27th. They usually give you what, month or so?
yeah, we're expecting November 27th, and the due date now for applications is February 14th.
Oh, okay.
So that may slide based on when the call comes out. And they're planning on having an online form type application. So, and the MTC applications are usually not too onerous. It's maybe like 2 or 3 pages. So, yeah.
Does anybody know what's happening with the coordinated plan update that MTC is doing?
It is, I saw something recently that it is in development, but I haven't heard something for a while.
It might be something for the next agenda, just to see what's going on with that, if it's ready, if we can present it. Maybe we could join in or something.
Yeah, I can check in with MTC before our next meeting. With a good time with you to talk about it.
Hey, any other final business comments or announcements? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
You're really good at that.
We're stuck here.
Where's the gavel?
Yeah, that's why, yeah, I know, I mean.
Yeah.
One or the other.
You do have a gavel.
Our bicycle advisory committee, we've got a bell. We've got like.
Oh, nice.
All right, thanks everybody for being here.
Awesome.
Thank you.